There are moments in Coronation Street that stop you absolutely cold. Moments where you look at what is unfolding on screen, and you think, nobody in that village has any idea how much danger they are actually in right now. This is one of those moments. Jodie has been making waves on the cobbles, stirring things up, pushing boundaries, and generally making life very uncomfortable for the people around her. But here is the thing that Jodie apparently has not fully reckoned with yet. She has just picked a fight with the wrong woman. Because Sarah Platt is not simply a Coronation Street resident with a grudge and a sharp tongue. Sarah Platt is a killer. And when Coronation Street's killer Sarah decides to take someone on, the consequences are never, ever minor. The collision between these two women is coming. It has been confirmed, and everything about how it has been set up suggests that what is heading toward our screens is going to be one of the most electrifying confrontations the cobbles have seen in a very long time. You need to know about this. So stay right where you are. Coronation Street has always been a show that understands the particular dramatic electricity generated when two strong, determined women collide. Some of the soap's most celebrated and most discussed storylines have been built around exactly this kind of confrontation. Two characters who are both formidable in their own right finding themselves on opposite sides of a conflict that neither of them is willing to back down from. The confirmation that Jodie is about to meet her match in the form of Sarah Platt, and that Sarah is taking her on with all the history and the darkness that the word killer implies, is the kind of story that Coronation Street fans have been trained by decades of brilliant drama to take very seriously indeed. This is trending across entertainment platforms, right now for very good reason. Sarah Platt is one of the most layered and complicated characters in the entire history of Coronation Street, a woman whose story spans childhood trauma, survival, motherhood, and yes, a past that includes taking another person's life under circumstances that the show explored with extraordinary moral complexity. Jodie, meanwhile, has established herself as a presence on the cobbles who is not easily intimidated and not easily managed. Putting these two women in direct conflict is a creative decision that promises serious drama, serious performances, and the kind of moral complexity that Coronation Street at its absolute best delivers with devastating effect. In this video, we are going to explore everything that has been confirmed and everything that the evidence of both characters' histories suggests about where this confrontation is heading. We will look at the fan reaction, analyze what this storyline means in the broader context of what Coronation Street is doing right now, and think about the possibilities that open up when killer Sarah finally takes Jodie on. This is a big story. Let us give it the attention it deserves. To understand the full weight and significance of what is coming between Sarah and Jodie, you need to understand both of these women in depth, because neither of them is a simple character, and the confrontation between them is going to draw on everything that makes each of them who they are. Let us start with Sarah Platt, because her story is one of the most extraordinary in Coronation Street's history, a journey that has taken her from a vulnerable child at the center of one of the soap's most controversial and debated storylines to one of its most complex and compelling adult characters. Sarah was introduced to Coronation Street as the daughter of Gail Platt, born into one of the street's most iconic families, and shaped from the very beginning by the particular pressures and dramas of life in the Platt household. Gail's complicated romantic history, her various husbands and partners, the turbulence that seemed to follow the family with extraordinary persistence, all of this formed the backdrop against which Sarah grew up, and it left its mark in ways that the show has explored with considerable psychological intelligence over the years. The storyline that defined Sarah's trajectory, and that introduced the word killer into her story, came when she was still a young teenager. The circumstances involved Richard Hillman, one of Coronation Street's most iconic villains, a man whose murderous intentions toward multiple members of the Platt family led to a night of terror that traumatized everyone involved, and that ended in a confrontation with lethal consequences. Sarah's involvement in the events of that night, and the way that trauma shaped the young woman she subsequently became, is fundamental to understanding who Sarah Platt is as an adult and why the word killer attached to her name carries such specific and complicated weight. It is important to say clearly that Sarah's history is not that of a cold-blooded killer in any simple sense. The circumstances of her past involve survival, trauma, and the kind of desperate action that takes place when someone's life and the lives of those they love are in genuine danger. Coronation Street has always been careful to maintain that complexity, to present Sarah not as a villain defined by her past, but as a survivor shaped by it, a woman who carries the weight of what happened while building a life and a family in the present. The show's long-term audience understands this history intimately, and they know that when Sarah is pushed to the wall, when the things she loves most are threatened, there is a darkness in her past that speaks to what she is capable of. As an adult, Sarah Platt has been one of Coronation Street's most consistently interesting characters. Her relationships, her role as a mother to Bethany, her place within the wider Platt family, and her professional life have all been explored with depth and nuance. She is fiercely protective of the people she loves, sometimes to a fault. She has a capacity for both warmth and hardness that reflects everything she has been through. And she has, over the years, developed a kind of self-knowledge and resilience that makes her a genuinely formidable person, someone who does not panic easily, and who does not back down from a fight when she believes she is in the right. Now let us talk about Jodie. She arrived on the cobbles with the kind of energy that immediately signals dramatic potential. A character whose presence disrupts the existing dynamics of the street, and whose motivations and history are revealed gradually in a way designed to build intrigue and tension. Jodie is not a straightforward antagonist, but she is not uncomplicated either. She has an agenda, she has a history, and she has a particular quality of determination that has brought her into conflict with multiple residents of Weatherfield since her arrival. What makes Jodie interesting as a character, and what makes her collision with Sarah so dramatically compelling, is that she is not simply a victim or simply a villain. She is a woman with her own logic, her own wounds, and her own justifications for the choices she makes. The best soap confrontations are not between a hero and a villain, but between two people who each believe they are right, each believe they are protecting something important, and each refuse to give ground. That is the dynamic that the show appears to be setting up between Jodie and Sarah, and it is a dynamic rich with dramatic possibility. The specific nature of what has brought Jodie and Sarah into conflict is part of the ongoing storyline, and the show has been careful about exactly how much of the detail it reveals in advance. What has been confirmed is that Jodie has done or said or attempted something that has landed her directly in Sarah's sights, and that Sarah, with all of her history and all of her fierce protectiveness, has decided that Jodie needs to be dealt with. When Sarah Platt decides someone needs to be dealt with, the cobbles tend to pay attention. The confirmation that Sarah is taking Jodie on has been accompanied by enough detail to make the shape of what is coming genuinely clear, even if some of the most dramatic specifics are being held back for the screen. What has been established is that Jodie has crossed a line with Sarah, and that the crossing of that line has triggered exactly the kind of response that Sarah's history and character make entirely credible and entirely inevitable. Sarah does not issue idle warnings. She does not make threats she does not intend to follow through on. When she identifies something or someone as a genuine threat to herself or the people she loves, she responds with a decisiveness and a ferocity that can catch people who do not know her history completely off guard. Jodie, it appears, has either not understood the full weight of what she is getting herself into by antagonizing Sarah, or she has understood it and has decided that she does not care, which would make her either very brave or very foolish, or possibly both. The framing of the story as Jodie meeting her match suggests that she has been operating under the impression that she can handle whatever Weatherfield throws at her, that she has the intelligence and the toughness to navigate any conflict that comes her way. What she apparently has not fully accounted for is the specific kind of opponent that Sarah represents. The confrontation between them is described as one that escalates significantly, which in Coronation Street terms means that it is not going to be resolved with a single dramatic scene or a shouted argument on the cobbles. This is a conflict that is going to develop over time, building in intensity as both women dig in and refuse to back down. The layers of the confrontation are going to be revealed gradually, with each episode adding new dimensions to the conflict and raising the stakes further. What specifically is at the heart of the conflict? The indications are that Jodie's actions have threatened or impacted something that Sarah holds deeply important, either a relationship, a family member, a secret, or a situation that Sarah has been trying to manage or protect. The word killer in the headline framing of this story is not simply a reference to Sarah's distant past. It is a reminder, directed at the audience, of what Sarah is capable of when the people and things she loves are genuinely threatened. It is the show telling us to take this confrontation seriously, because one of the women involved has a past that demonstrates she is not someone to be underestimated. The performances involved in the confrontation scenes have apparently been extraordinary, which is entirely consistent with what both actresses are capable of when given strong material. The scenes between Sarah and Jodie reportedly crackle with the kind of tension that comes from two skilled performers who are fully committed to the reality of their character's conflict. And the indication from those who have seen the material is that this is genuinely exceptional Coronation Street drama. There is also a dimension to the storyline that involves the wider Platt family, which almost inevitably becomes relevant whenever Sarah is in a major storyline. The Platts are one of those Coronation Street family units whose history is so densely layered, and whose members are so deeply enmeshed in each other's lives, that it is almost impossible for one member of the family to be in serious conflict without it affecting everyone else. Gail's reaction, the reactions of other family members, and the way that the wider Platt network mobilizes around Sarah's conflict with Jody are all going to be part of the story as it develops. The professional dimension of Sarah's life is also likely to play a role. Her position and her relationships in the business world of Weatherfield give her resources and connections that could become relevant as she takes Jody on, adding a layer of practical conflict to the emotional and personal dimensions of their confrontation. Sarah is not simply a woman with a dark past and protective instincts. She is also someone with agency, with skills, and with a network of relationships that she can deploy when she needs to. Jody is going to find that taking on Sarah Platt means taking on considerably more than she bargained for. The timing of this storyline within Coronation Street's current season is also significant. The show has been in strong creative form, with multiple major storylines running simultaneously and building towards significant moments. The Sarah and Jody confrontation is being positioned as one of the headline events of this dramatic period, which tells you something about the confidence the production team has in the material and in the two performers at its center. The response to the confirmation of this storyline has been immediate and genuinely enthusiastic, reflecting both the enduring affection for Sarah Platt as a character and the excitement generated by the prospect of a genuinely formidable conflict on the cobbles. The fan reaction has been dominated by expressions of fierce support for Sarah, which is both predictable and revealing. Sarah Platt is one of those Coronation Street characters who inspires a particular kind of loyalty in the show's long-term audience. The loyalty that comes from having watched someone survive genuinely terrible things and emerge with their fundamental humanity intact. When that character is threatened or challenged, the audience response is visceral and immediate, and the confirmation that Sarah is stepping up to take on Jody has generated exactly that kind of protective, enthusiastic support. There has been enormous excitement about Tina O'Brien specifically in the fan reaction, with viewers noting that she is one of the show's most consistently excellent performers and expressing delight at the prospect of a major storyline that puts her character at the center of the drama. Comments about her ability to convey the particular combination of vulnerability and steel that defines Sarah at her best have been widespread, and there is a strong sense among the fanbase that this is a storyline that has been given to exactly the right actress. The reference to Sarah's killer past in the framing of the storyline has generated its own wave of discussion, with long-term viewers sharing memories of the storylines that established the aspect of Sarah's history and debating what it means that the show is choosing to invoke that darkness now. This kind of retrospective fan engagement, where current storylines spark renewed interest in and discussion of events from years or even decades ago, is one of the most enjoyable aspects of following a long-running soap opera, and the Sarah and Jody confrontation has triggered it in a particularly rich way. Jody as a character has also received considerable attention in the fan reaction, with viewers debating her motivations, her history, and what specifically she has done to bring herself into Sarah's crosshairs. The mystery around Jody's background and agenda has been one of the more intriguing elements of her introduction to the show, and the confirmation that she is now in direct conflict with one of Coronation Street's most formidable characters has added a new urgency to viewer speculation about who she really is and what she is really after. Media coverage has been extensive and positive, with entertainment journalists and soap critics responding to the confirmation with the kind of enthusiasm that reflects genuine respect for the dramatic potential of the material. Several pieces have focused specifically on the significance of invoking Sarah's killer history in the context of this new conflict, exploring what it means narratively and dramatically that the show is choosing this moment to remind audiences of that darker dimension of her story. The critical response has been broadly that this is bold, smart storytelling that draws on the show's own history in exactly the right way. The Sarah and Jody confrontation carries significance that extends well beyond the immediate drama of two characters in conflict, and understanding that broader significance helps explain why this storyline has landed with such impact. At the most fundamental level, This is a story about what happens when someone underestimates the